Here are 3 things that people get wrong about fundraising when they're starting their nonprofit and what you can do about it. Let's get into it. Hey, this is Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. So I help people start their nonprofits and raise money from the ground up. If you're looking for a private community of nonprofit founders who are raising money just like you, then comment join below and I'll send you the link to sign up. The community is only open at certain times during the year, so make sure you click that link when you get it. So I wanted to do this video because I really do believe that fundraising is, if not the number one of the biggest barriers for people who are starting their nonprofit. And for people in those positions, it could seem like it's insurmountable. It could seem like I'm never going to get this right, or I have no idea how I'm going to do this, or this isn't possible. And I want to outline the 3 things that probably are getting in the way, that you're probably thinking about wrong with fundraising, so you can be successful. Because my goal on this channel is to build a community of people who are winning, to build a community of people who can raise money for their missions and do great work for years and years to come. So in this video, I'm just going to share 3 things that people typically get wrong, and then I'm going to share some insights about how to adjust those things. So the first thing I want to talk about is what people think fundraising is and what it actually is not. So a lot of people think that fundraising, in order to be successful, you have to have like an event. You got to do a gala, because a lot of times that's the most visible thing that they see nonprofits do. People have sneaker galas, or they have their golf events and things like that. So a lot of people in their head, when they hear the word fundraising, they automatically assume that it's about having an event. And then they believe in order to be successful raising money, they have to have events. Or this is another way to look at it. I use the term fundraising very broadly. So when I use that word, I'm talking about ways to make money for your nonprofit. So some people think, oh, all I have to do is get really good at writing grants, or get these just magic grants that are going to just set us for years to come, and we'll just keep applying over and over again. And then we can just focus on the work that we need to do, because I just got to get that grant. And once I get the grant, it's good. So what I'm here to tell you is fundraising is so much bigger than both of those things. What fundraising is a process by which you are engaging the people who care most about your mission and giving them the opportunity to give their resources to that mission. But what people focus too much on is the act of the ask. Right? So they get so fixated on, I need to develop a pitch, or I need to develop a proposal, or I got to do an event. And then once I do that, the money will come. But you have to understand that fundraising is a series of actions, and it's not just asking. When I teach about fundraising, I typically use the model of the fundraising cycle. Now I know you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't think I was going to have class. Tiffany, just tell me what it is and what it's not. But it's really important that you take this down and you really grasp this, because people are thinking that it's like a magical formula to fundraise. If I just put these magic words in this sentence, then I'll raise buku money, right? And really what it is about you developing relationships with people, getting them excited about your mission, extending them the offer to give, and then engaging those people on a lifetime basis to go deeper with you, to go deeper with your mission, and to care more about the things that you're doing. So when you are trying to get people to give money to you, the first thing you got to think about is, who are my people? Who are the people who are most likely to lean in, or most likely to care about my mission or the impact that I'm making? And it could be on different levels. It could be for you, the people who care about you personally, or the people you're connected to professionally or socially. And then on a bigger level, it could be people or organizations or corporations that are geographically close to you, or they've expressed interest in your mission, or they care about something that you talk about or something that you address with your organization. There are people who are way more likely to give and support you because they just care more about the topic, or they have invested most in that topic, or it aligns with their values, or it resonates with them, or they've had some kind of personal experience with it. So for example, if you have a nonprofit that focuses on the environment, I wouldn't necessarily target people who have not indicated that that's a priority for them. For some people, it's a priority to give to young people, or it's a priority to give to veterans, right? So I'm not saying that you not ask people for money just because they haven't expressed an interest in your cause, but you need to find the people that are more likely or most likely to want to hear you out or care or are interested in the things that you're doing. Then when you identify the people who are most likely to care, whether it's because they live close to you, whether they're close to the cause, or they know somebody impacted by the cause, whatever the reason is, then you got to think about, how can I educate these people? How can I engage these people to learn more about what it's really like to do this work, to learn more about how if they gave and if they supported, it could make a huge difference. Because people don't necessarily understand that them giving their money or giving their time and attention to your cause, the impact it makes. That's why it's your responsibility to show them that by giving or investing their money and their time and their support, it's going to make a huge difference in this world. And you got to tell them how exactly it's going to make a difference. So you're spending that time educating and engaging them before you even ask them to invest. Then you can ask them to invest once you've warmed them up, once you develop that relationship with them. And then you need to focus on thinking. You need to focus on involving those people, getting them even more interested, getting them to get their networks and their family and friends invested as well, because you want to have a lifetime community member, a lifetime donor who just cares about the work you do and is steeped and invested in who you are as an organization and the people that you help. I just described the different pieces of the fundraising cycle, but essentially all fundraising is you developing relationships with people and extending the opportunity for them to share what they care about, to make a difference with their money. So you are providing the way, you're providing the lane for them to do something with their money. Your job is to educate them enough and make sure they know where their money is going and why it's so important. So you're facilitating that process for them. You're bringing them along, but you're providing the opportunity for them to make the decision to give to something they care about. So my question to you is, what are you doing to get people invested in your mission? What are you doing to get people excited and mobilized around the change that you're creating? What are you doing to inspire hope in people so they believe that when they give or when they pay attention to what you're doing, it's actually changing something? That's what you need to invest a lot of your time in instead of only investing in asking. And I want to say one more thing about fundraising and what people get wrong about it, especially when it comes to events. Because I encounter a lot of people who, when they're first getting started, they want to do a big event and they want to do a big gala. And in most circumstances, that first event isn't as successful as they want it to be, or there's a lot of hard lessons learned about how much to put into that event versus how much you make. Most times with events, it's an investment that you're not going to see consistent money or considerable profit from an event like a gala or something like that until a couple years in, unless you're very intentional about keeping your costs extremely low and focusing on how you can get sponsors, focusing how you can get major donors to give based on that event. You're not going to make a whole lot of money on ticket sales. You may make money possibly on people pledging during the event, or you're doing a silent auction, but the more you add to that event, the more time, effort, and energy it costs. And people find that it's a lot of work. So they get discouraged by those events and they feel like fundraising is so hard. But a lot of times the energy that you expended with that event could have been used to ask 10 people to give $100 or to ask 50 people to give $100. And the amount that you raised from that event could have been the same with way less effort. Now, there are trade-offs to both things, but I just want to shift your thinking around like feeling like you have to have an event or feeling like you have to have something very public in terms of activity, right? Or bringing people together in order to raise money. People give to the things they care about. And if you can just have conversations with them about why it matters, if you can connect with them one-on-one, you can get way further than putting all your time and energy into an event. So I just wanted to say that. The second mistake that people make, especially when they're new to nonprofits and fundraising, is that they believe that fundraising is a skill that they will never have, or it's a skill that they don't have to develop. So if you are a founder and you know you're going to be an executive director, or you're going to have a major presence in your nonprofit, then you have to fundraise. There's no getting around it. But a lot of people shy away from that because they say, well, I'm not comfortable asking. I'm not good with asking for money. That's not my thing. I'll just get somebody else to do it. Let me just say this. It is really a smart move to have somebody in your organization who's dedicated to fundraising, because the more time and energy you put into fundraising, the more that you'll be able to raise money, the more you'll be able to sustain yourself for long term and hire other people to do other work. So it's important to invest in a development person or a person whose job it is to only raise money. But just because you have a person doing that doesn't mean as the leader of the organization, you can remove yourself from that process. Fundraising is really about building relationships. It's about meeting people. It's about networking. It's about connecting with people. And you are the face of the organization. You are the person leading the charge. You have to be out there meeting new people, making those connections, taking meetings, talking about the impact that you're making, talking about your plans and your vision. You cannot escape that. And all of that is fundraising. So if you're in your head thinking, well, I just have to give it to somebody else and they'll just raise the money and I'll just focus on doing the work, serving the people. You gotta shift that mindset, because as a leader of your organization, you cannot get away from asking for money. You can't get away from all the different pieces of fundraising that's required of you. And let's be honest, because you started this organization, especially if you're the founder, let's just talk to the founders right now. You are the best person to talk about the work that you do. You're the best person to tell a story of why your organization was created, of why it's needed. Many of you have either lived these experiences or you've seen it firsthand for a really long time. And so you know in an intimate way why it's so important for people to support this issue, why it's so important for people to give their money to help people in those same situations. So nobody can be as authentic as you. Nobody can be as passionate as you. So why would you want somebody else to have full responsibility to tell your organization's story? You should be jumping up. You should be the first person wanting to be the face and wanting to talk about this work. You may not think that matters. You may not think that your experience or your passion means something, but it absolutely does. Now, it does take skill to learn how to be persuasive, to learn how to tell a good story, to learn how to write the right appeal, to learn how to, build a right rapport with people in order to convince them to give. It does take skill. But that skill is not going to develop if you decide that you're not going to do it, or if you decide that that's not for you, or that's not a skill that you can learn. And this is the last thing I'll say, because I could be on a soapbox on this all day, because I believe every person has what it takes to raise money. This is the last thing I'll say about this point. Most people who are fundraising right now, who are development directors, who are great at fundraising, did not go to school for fundraising. Most people who are in those positions fell into those positions. They just ended up in those positions and they had to figure it out. They had to learn, and they learned by doing. So if you're thinking that you had to go to school, or it just takes this incredibly specialized technical knowledge that you can't ever learn, don't think that way. Most people who are fundraising didn't learn from school. They learned by doing. And then some people may have gone back and gotten their certifications and things like that. But you can't even get certification unless you do the work. You can't even get certified unless you have hours doing fundraising. So what's the point of all of this? Do the work. Don't shy away from asking. Don't shy away from developing relationships, especially if you're the leader of the organization. And the third thing that people get wrong about fundraising is the feeling that asking somebody for money is a burden. So you tell me if this is you. You know you gotta ask for money. You know you need some money for your programs. But the thought of asking people makes you literally sweat. It makes you cringe. It makes your stomach hurt, right? So you may think to yourself, how in the world can I ask somebody to give money when I know people are struggling? What if those people don't have that money? And then here I come asking them and they're going to look at me crazy. Or what are they going to think about me? Because I'm going to look like I'm begging for help. I'm asking, I need something. I don't like to ask nobody for anything. So for any of those statements, have you ever said those things, or have you ever thought that? Probably yes, because I've talked to a lot of you on the phone and I've engaged with a lot of you. But this is one thing I need everybody to understand. When people give, it's something that they want to do. It's very rare that when somebody gives, they feel like they're being strong-armed to give. It's very rare that when somebody gives, they do it begrudgingly. When most people give, it's because they want to. It's because they make the decision that if they gave their money, then it's going to do something good. Why else would they do it? Because it's not going to come back to them. So obviously, if they give it, they know it's going to do something. It's going to make some good. It's going to make some kind of impact. So too many times when we stress over the ask, we're literally projecting our own fears, our own anxieties, doubts, worries onto the person, and they probably have no clue that you're feeling that way or aren't even going there. So a lot of times when you ask people for money and then there's that silence where they're trying to do the calculation about whether or not they can do it, in the middle of that, in that silence, you throw so much junk in there. Oh my goodness, they're looking at me crazy. They're thinking that I'm going to use this money the wrong way. Or how could I even ask this person for money? It makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing. Like I need help. Like it makes us feel like we don't have the capacity to do the work. You got to get all of that out of your head because most people are just trying to figure out whether or not they can do it. And that's their right as a human, as a grown person to decide whether or not they can or whether or not they want to. I say this all the time. You have to give people the space to be grown and make their own decisions. This is how you have to look at it. It is a freeing process to give somebody the choice, the power to decide how to use their money. People are literally living out their values and living out the things they care about through their money. That's what happens when they give to you. So they're not giving to you, they're giving because they know that money is going to be used for something they care about. And that's what matters. That's what you need to be focused on instead of worrying about, well, because I gave, they're looking at me a certain way. And you cannot put yourself or center yourself in the ask or even in your work for your nonprofit because it's not about you. This is not about you. This money is to help people who need something. They need a service. They need something to be addressed. Something needs to be changed, whatever it is for your mission. And the financial resources are going to make that possible. So imagine that you're the person getting in the way of that. Imagine that your insecurities is the thing getting in the way of you accessing those financial resources. Always remember that the money is not for you. The money is to help make a change. And when somebody has the freedom, when you give them the freedom and the opportunity to make that decision that they want to help change something, it is an amazing, a joyful, and a good thing. All right. So remember that giving is a joyful act. People want to do it. You cannot rob people of the opportunity to do something that they want to do. So I know I beat you up a little bit, but I hope that something resonated and you understand that it's not a burden when you ask people for money. And for the people that it may be a burden for and don't want to be asked, that's a small group of people and they have that right too. They have the right to not want to be asked and they have the right to say no. But there are so many other people who will say yes. And even if they don't say no right now, there are so many people who will say yes eventually. So I want you to keep focused on building the relationship, sharing the information about your organization and your mission and why it's so important, and the money will come. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or comments in the chat or even advice for other people as you've gone along this startup journey. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you need help with your nonprofit, you can always visit me at bossonabudget.com, and I will see you in the next video.